Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day. I'm excited to talk about predicting your success in government contracting. Get rocking and rolling in the training. Today, we're going to be talking about predicting federal market success. To me, success in the federal market, success as a government contractor, really success in general should be predictable, right? Sometimes we feel like success is just not happening. We put a plan in place, we go through the year, and the next thing you know, the year's over, but we haven't hit our goals, or you're kind of driving towards them, but it's not happening. And so that success can be elusive, which is really annoying, a little depressing sometimes. You're like, but sometimes we might have a little bit of success, but when we're honest with ourselves, we see it more as luck rather than a result of strategic proactive activity following a process over and over. And when I say luck, it's not truly, oh, I walked in and there it is. But an example of luck to me is if I had a relationship, I left an agency or I left a large prime or something and turned right back around and I had that relationship. Well, that's kind of lucky, right? Can you go into another agency and get it? And you should be able to predict going into an agency blind and predict when you're going to have that success. But sometimes it can be elusive. When we set our strategic plans and establish goals for the next year, for example, 2024. And when I say this, right, I don't mean a 25-page plan, but just when you go to the whiteboard, when you sit down with your team and you go, hey, this is what we're going to accomplish. When you're laying that out and when you're setting, here's what I want my 2024 revenue goals to be, that's about predictability. And it's vital that you should already have 2024 revenue goals in mind, because the way sales works is generally, if you're looking to knock out of the park your revenue goals for 2024, then you would have been making the sales in 2023. If you haven't done that yet, don't worry about it. You'd still kind of catch up and keep going forward. But you want to be setting out those goals and your strategy for achieving that. And that's what's going to give you predictability. When I talk about success, right, when federal market success and business success, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. You might look at it from retention as an example, right? I want to make sure we have a really strong team that stays with us and build a really good culture. And that's an option for measuring success, right? That's a measurement of success for our company. But fundamentally, for companies that are a profit company, for profit, we think about revenue. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. When I say federal market success, it doesn't mean I'm ignoring the other ones accidentally. I'm ignoring them on purpose, right? I just want to focus on one topic, and that's your revenue success. How can you sit there and have predictability on your revenue success? Today, I'm going to be covering down on three different topics related to revenue success. So the first thing is just why being able to accurately predict success is really important for your company. It's not something we should do accidentally. It's something we should do proactively. Second thing I want to talk about is just when you look at your company and you look at the activity going on, where should you be measuring predictability? I'm going to talk about that and give you specific examples of where you should be looking in your company. And then I'm going to wrap up today's trainings with steps you can actually take, KPIs you can put in place that will improve the predictability, the success predictability that you and your company have out there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm with the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's the whole purpose of today's training, right? That predictable results, success. Okay, let's begin with why being able to accurately predict success is important for your company, right? Sometimes we can just think that's the case, but one of my favorite lines is the biggest problem with communication is the illusion it took place at all. The biggest problem with definitions or thinking about we know what predicts success means is the assumption that everybody even knows what we're talking about. But that's not the case, right? When you think about accurately predicting success and why it's important for your company, fundamentally it comes down when you're able to predict success, you can accurately decide if you're going to be able to hit your goal, right? You can also accurately see or predict whether you're going to miss your goal. And I'm okay with either one of those, actually. If you can predict your success and you see that you're going to achieve or miss your success, both of those are actually really good to know. Those are great. That's exactly what you want, right? I can see I'm going to miss it and I can see I'm going to hit it. I'm not here to necessarily, certainly not on this slide, say, how do you hit your goal? I'm saying, how do you predict success, whether we will have it or whether we won't have it? And the reason I say that's really important to get either one of them is because if you can see that you're not going to hit the success goals that you have set for yourself, then you can do something about it. But if you're so blind to your company's success, right, the ability to predict it, if you can't predict whether we're going to hit or miss our goals, then you won't even know till the very end whether you missed it completely. And that's a dangerous spot to be at. And so what I'm talking about today is trying to avoid that problem, right? When you can accurately predict success, then these are early warning signs that allow you to do something about it. Like I said, if you can predict that I'm predicting our success will be missed, right? Then I have early warning signs that it's going to be missed, and my team and I can rally behind it and identify areas for process improvement. We can look in there and decide, are we missing out on this? Are we not doing enough of this? Do we have the wrong people or not enough people in the seats? These are things that allow us to look at our process within the organization and work on it. Another reason we want to be able to accurately predict success, and this is a really important factor from a leadership standpoint, is it informs leadership's decision. Leadership could be just the business owner, or as the company is getting bigger, there's people in marketing and HR and maybe finance, et cetera, right? And these people are all trying to make, they're all trying to make decisions for the benefit of the company. They all need to be able to count on our prediction, our ability to accurately predict the success of the company and where the company is going. Decisions like whether we should spend more money, right? If we're thinking about getting a bigger office building or leasing more equipment, whatever it is, we're spending money in there. We need to be able to decide, should we be doing that? Can we do that? And if I can predict success and accurately see the revenue coming in month after month, then I will know when I can spend at certain levels. Same thing with hiring, right? Do we need to hire people? Do we want to hire ahead? And if I can see what our chances of success in hitting the goals that we have from a sales and revenue standpoint, then I can decide whether I want to hire up, not just hire up to fill a contract, but maybe I want to hire a few people into our company to build a practice area. And then the last thing is on retention, right? When you look at what's happening, you can decide whether leaders are making decisions around retention. Can we shift people to other contracts or other projects that are interesting to them? Do we retain these people? Are these the right people for us, et cetera? These decisions have to be informed in one way or another. They have to be informed by some piece of data. And the ability to accurately predict success and the tools that you use to be able to make those predictions are the data that will come in to the decision-making process. So that's just quickly why being able to accurately predict success is important to the company. And just as a reminder, accurately predicting success doesn't mean you're going to achieve success. It tells you whether you're going to miss it or whether you're going to hit it. Both of those are fine. We just need to be able to see the reality of the situation. So let's talk about where you should be measuring success, right? If you think about measuring success predictability or the ability to predict success out there, where can I look in and predict or measure this, right? I can't just look at the end. I somehow have to look at it. We call these leading indicators, right? There's different ways of describing it. But for today's purpose, these 6 bullets I'm going to talk to you about, these are leading indicators that are a proactive approach to looking at what you're doing and whether you're doing the right things in the right way and enough of the right things that will ensure the success that you've predicted for yourself, that you want for yourself. These things are these bullets or measurements or leading indicators are what you will be able to use to measure the future success. One thing before I talk about each one of them a little bit individually is just this idea of when you look at any leading indicator like this, it's similar to what headlights do for a car. If you see on my screen, I've got this car and it's coming around a curve and it's got headlights. Without the headlights, you're just experiencing everything real time. You show up at the curve and you're like, whoa, maybe you react and stay on the road, but maybe you go flying off the side because you don't have any leading indicators of what the road is like, what the journey is like. And when you pay attention to leading indicators, when you have headlights on, you're able to see whether there's danger in the road ahead, like the curve, or whether there's animals or debris in the road, et cetera, a stopped car. The headlights are the leading indicator to what's going to be happening. And the more leading indicators you have, the farther out you can see. So this car can only see a little bit out there, right? But imagine if it actually could see farther, or it used AI and the AI could see a mile down the road. There'd be almost no accidents ever because we'd be able to see all the problems and we could predict a safe course while we're driving. These leading indicators for government contracting are a similar way. So the first one I put down here is monthly revenue. For a lot of us, we think sometimes, hey, let's set an annual goal. I want to have a $1 million or a $12 million company by the end of the year. And that's always a loose one too. It's like, do you mean you want $12 million in revenue recognized, right? Top line revenue, and what I call money in the bank, right? If it's in the bank, then it's revenue. Otherwise, it's not. That's one goal, right? An annual goal, and you kind of get to the end and you decide whether you're there or not. But if you measure it in 12 steps, right, the months, you can measure each month whether you're going to be hitting that revenue goal. And, at the beginning of a year, if you're trying to get 12 million, you can lay out a plan that says, I expect to have $1 million in revenue added every month, and that'll equal 12 million. And so as you go forward and you look at these leading indicators, if you're not making $1 million in January or $1 million in February, pretty soon you start realizing, this indicator, monthly revenue, is telling me I'm not going to hit my goal. I either need to adjust my goal or adjust my activity. The second one is new sales, right? You can look at revenue, which is, hey, we landed a sale, we executed on the work. But a new sale is, are we even landing the new work? And so we should have a plan for how much new sales we want coming in. You can set monthly goals or quarterly goals. Anything beyond a quarterly goal is not positioning yourself best to predict success, because now you're setting back to that annual goal and, hey, we've got $20 million or $50 million in sales goal for this year. Well, then you just wait to the end. No, you should be figuring out how you can line up your pipeline so it is delivering sales results on a quarterly basis, right? We could talk separately about how do you win those things, et cetera, but you should be able to look at opportunities and have opportunities in your pipeline that the award and start dates are in where you want it to be. An example is if you have a lot of recompetes into your pipeline, then those recompeted opportunities have a pretty predictable start date. So then you start lining them up quarterly and you can look out and go, hey, are we lining this up? The next one is proposals, right? Proposals are a great leading indicator. Are we doing enough for the proposals? If we're not getting enough proposals out the door, if we're not working with enough teammates to get proposals out the door, then that's a good indicator we're not going to get the sales we're looking for, which in turn means we're not going to get the revenue we're looking for. I don't have to monitor just revenue, monthly revenue. I can keep backing up and have leading indicators that lead to leading indicators. So an example, if I come back really quick for the car with the headlights, right? I use Waze, and when I drive somewhere of any kind of real distance, I use Waze to map the route, and Waze will give me a leading indicator. Hey, there's a cop up ahead. There's a car stopped on the road. There's tight traffic. That tight traffic it's telling me about, or traffic congestion, right, is a leading indicator to my trip's going to take longer. And that kind of thing is awesome, because then I'm able to jump ahead and call somebody and say, hey, I'm going to be late because of traffic. Traffic. I don't like excuses, but that's why I'm late. Anyways, these leading indicators with business, it's that same thing. You can have more and more leading indicators. I talked about Waze. I can look at Waze the day before, and it can tell me traditionally traffic is pretty heavy here. If you want to get here at this time, leave earlier. I'm going farther and farther back in my travel time before I even got in my car and seeing my success measurements. Can I predict success of getting where I want to go on time? And these indicators are that same way. So do I have enough proposals going out the door? And when I back up further, right, remember what I'm going through is this 7-step process. I teach this all the time. You can watch it more, but it's a process. I'm just going in reverse direction on it. And so going back from proposals, do I have enough opportunities in the pipeline that are going to sufficiently lead to the forward activity I want with proposals, sales, et cetera? And then I can also look at predictability on capture. Am I doing the capture that needs to be done related to an opportunity? It's one thing to have opportunities in the pipeline. That's great. But it's another thing for me to be doing the activity around capture or around opportunities, right? So that's capture. And I can look in there and say, well, if I'm not talking to people, then there's a really good chance my proposals are not going to be that good. I'm just going to be responding to a blind. Basically, I could have just waited for it to come out on SAM. If all I'm going to do is put it in the pipeline, not talk to anybody, and then write, you might as well just wait till it gets to SAM. The next one, coming back from that, right? Opportunities, you hear about opportunities from the relationships you have. These are strategic relationships, right? Strategic relationships are ones where you have a regular scheduled meeting, or if it's with an agency, you've got a really good relationship with them established that they're okay with you talking to them at any given point. Hey, can I call you back? I was looking at the zero trust thing, and I saw this new article came out. How's that affect you guys? Having those relationships in place. If you don't have relationships in place, that is a leading indicator to probably you're not going to be able to do much capture on the opportunities that are in your pipeline, which will make your proposals less winning than they could be. which then impacts the sales and the revenue, right? These are all indicators that are just backing up in the process. And the last one that I had is outreach, right? These outreach in my 7-step process is fundamentally cold calling, right? New meetings. Are you having enough new meetings that will lead to the relationships? If you don't have enough of those, then that's an indicator of the lack of success you're going to have farther down the line in the process, right? These are the things you should be measuring. You should be measuring whether you've got enough revenue coming in on a regular basis, monthly basis. Are we winning enough sales? Are we doing enough proposals? Do we have enough opportunities? Do I have enough relationships? Am I doing enough new outreach? When you look at those, these indicators will tell you whether you're going to have success. These will predict the success for you as they feed into the process. So the last thing I just want to teach you about and talk to you about are the steps you can take to improve the success predictability. So I talked about leading indicators, right? These are just another way of looking at it, but here I want to get more specific on, well, what should you be doing that could improve your success, right? Or improve your ability to predict the success. And when you look out, right, and you go, we rarely hit our goals. I don't know what's going on. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, stop. If you believe that the people you have working with you, including you, are good at their jobs, then it's always the process. I drive home, I think every single training I do, that it's the process. And when you take a look at the process, you can begin to make sure the process is well defined. We're executing on the process and we're hitting any measurement on each process step. And that's what I want to talk about, right? So the first thing you can do to improve success predictability is to make sure you're looking at these success factors and leading indicators that I'm talking about on a weekly basis, right? Every single week, you should have a 15-minute meeting. You come into the meeting, whether it's just you and your team or the leadership team, whatever it is, 15 minutes. Don't make it longer than that. Otherwise, you're no longer doing what I'm suggesting. All you need to do is to look at the KPIs that I'm talking below and go, where are we on this? So I want to look at the progress towards revenue. I want to look at the revenue. If I say I want $12 million in 2024, then that $12 million is basically coming in $1 million a month. And if that's the case, then when I look at, and I have my weekly meetings, all I have to do is say, hey, let's look at the revenue. How much money did we make this month? How much did we make last month? Those numbers will tell us. If the number is less than $1 million, we're not hitting our 12 million goal, right? And so if it's drastically less, it tells you, wow, we really need to accelerate what we're doing. The other thing, so you're measuring your progress towards the revenue, but another thing is KPIs, having key performance indicators. And basically these are just numbers that you're trying to hit. Right? If and I'm going to go in and give you specific ones, but key performance indicators it's almost like a leading indicator to the leading indicator. If a monthly proposal key performance or is a leading indicator to your success, these KPIs are telling you whether you're doing enough of the monthly proposals. So let's just start there with some KPIs you can put in place. You don't just put them in place. Don't just write them, right? I literally was talking to my team earlier today saying, we need to look at ours too and make sure that when we're rolling out a new service, and we want to have success offering this service to our customers, we need to make sure we're doing our own metrics. Are we putting them in place and are we hitting them? It's not enough for us to be visible out there doing daily trainings, right? Are we picking up the phone and calling people? Just like we're saying to you, it's the same thing across the board. When you think about sales is not unique process in different places. For this type of sales that we all do, it goes through the general same process. So let's start with the monthly proposals, right? You need to have a KPI in place for the number of proposal responses that are going out the door. I suggest that you should have at least 4 proposals going out the door every single month. Everything that I talk about, always keep in mind, I'm talking about your slam dunk opportunities. A slam dunk opportunity is one that your company should absolutely do. Everybody in your company who looks at it goes, that's ours. That we should have that. We should be able to win that, right? And so having monthly proposals and getting them out the door, 4 of them out the door, is not hard. And we'll talk about this further in a minute, but they don't all have to be prime contracts. You can be subcontracting a couple different opportunities, right? I got a customer right now that I think is juggling 3 different proposals, and they're just basically involved with data calls, a little bit of past performance. Well, that's manageable, right? When you figure out how to manage your time, different training, but when you manage your time, getting 4 proposals out the door is not hard. If you're a smaller business, right, let's say you're under 2 million, don't make any of them a prime. Make all 4 proposals that you want to get submitted out the door be where you're a subcontractor. So if you don't have 4 proposals going out the door, and I don't care if you're a $10 million company or you have no money at all, you should be having 4 proposals going out the door. And so if you're a teeny company, maybe you're only getting a little bit of revenue on a bigger project for some other business, right? But you can subcontract. You just have to get out there and identify the opportunities, build relationships. We'll talk about that in a minute. But all of us can be getting those 4 proposals out the door. And a proposal is the only way you're going to get a win. If you don't submit a proposal, you don't get a win, right? So that's a vital thing to have in place. I'm suggesting 4. Feel free to increase it or decrease it. That's up to you. But 4 is the number I like to recommend. So opportunities is the second KPI I want you to have in place. When you think about your pipeline, and I don't care what tool you use, when you think about your pipeline, these are slam dunk opportunities that you think your company can win. So, or your company can win, right? And these are opportunities in your pipeline that are covering out through the next 12 months. They can go beyond that, but let's just stick with 12 months for a second. You need to make sure you have enough, like I had the number sign here, right? So the quantity of pipeline or opportunities in your pipeline needs to be sufficient. You need to determine what that number is for you. I work with customers and I talk about 40 to 60 opportunities in the pipeline. That's not bad, especially when you're talking about trying to get 4 proposals out the door. That's at least 48 opportunities, right? And so having 40 to 60 opportunities in the pipeline at any given point is not unrealistic. It's work, right? You got to get it in. But do you have a number? When you set a KPI, you're determining what's the number of opportunities I want in my pipeline. And the second thing is, what's the dollar value, right? So if I'm hitting a $12 million goal, I have a certain pipeline value, how much total contract value it needs to be in order to hit that revenue goal, right? And that's not today's training, but you need to determine the number that the dollar amount, the total contract value that is in the pipeline that will enable you to hit your goals. The next KPI is strategic relationships. And this is what I meant by opportunities and proposals and how you can get 4 out the door. You need to have at least 8 strategic relationships. And so you want to put a KPI in place with that. If I'm working with customers who've got multiple business development people, I'm like, they need to have at least 4 each. Really, it should be 8 per person. That's not that hard to manage. In particular, when you remember that a strategic relationship is one where they're committed to your success and are able to contribute to it, and you're committed to their success. You can watch a lot of training videos I have on strategic relationships that dive into the meat of it. But fundamentally, the KPI is, do we have enough strategic relationships in place? If we don't have strategic relationships in place, meaning we meet every 2 weeks and talk about our pipeline, then how will I ever get on subcontracting opportunities? How can I ever bring them in to strengthen my team, right? So I need to have a strategic relationship number in mind for a KPI. The next one is weekly meetings, right? Every week we should be meeting with new people. When you have not enough strategic relationships, you need to meet with way more people than those of us who have strategic relationships. But one way or another, you need to have weekly new meetings happening where you're meeting somebody new, a new agency person or a new industry partner, and just reaching out. And these are introduction meetings, but every single week you should have something. And that number you could set, you determine what it is, like 2 meetings or 4 meetings a week. That's good. But if you're having these, it means everything else will be easier. For example, if you have weekly meetings, the chances of you being able to develop strategic relationships get better, which enables you to hear about opportunities, which enable you to write better, more winning proposals, right? That lead to sales, that lead to revenue. These all kind of walk back from each other. And so making sure that you have a KPI that around weekly meetings, that's an example of how you can improve success predictability. If I'm having these meetings, there's a pretty good chance that I'll move forward. I would be willing to bet that if you're not hitting the success metrics that you have in place for your company, you can just look back on these bullets that I'm mentioning, look back to weekly meetings, go, oh yeah, we're not really doing a lot of those. But if you put those in place, you will drastically see your success begin to turn around. And the last one is daily new calls, right? You can't have a weekly new meeting without asking for the meeting. And basically daily new calls is cold calling, picking up the phone, trying to get a meeting with an industry partner or an agency person. So here's what I want you to remember from today's training. The first thing is, don't wait to the end of the year to be successful and to see if you're going to be successful, right? Be able to predict it, make it happen. Make it happen by doing the right things and seeing it happen and the right metrics happening month after month, or make it happen by seeing you're not on track and course correct, right? The second thing is put in place KPIs and review these key performance indicators weekly. Look at them. Don't just write them down and say, hey, we're going to do this many calls a week or something. actually have them hold yourself and others accountable to doing this. And if some reason you can't do it, refine your KPI so that it's doable. Later on, you can sit there and begin to do more in that KPI. But initially, for example, do one of that KPI. I'm going to do one new call or one weekly meeting. Just get yourself doing these KPIs on a regular basis, then get stronger at delivery inside of them. So on bullet 3 here, what I want you to remember, I want to give you a task coming out of this, is I want you to look at the 7-step process diagram I showed earlier, but I talk about the 7-step process, and I want you to reverse engineer, go backwards from sales to proposals to opportunities to relationships to outreach, targeting, and research. Go back through those 7 steps and find one area where you go, you know what, let's improve this particular area this little bit. Don't try to change the whole world out there. Don't try to all of a sudden have massive process improvement. Find one area where you can commit to going forward this week and next week and say, I'm going to start working on this one thing. When you do, it's like putting tennis shoes on and walking out to the sidewalk. You don't have to exercise, do anything. If all you do is put your tennis shoes and go outside, then all of a sudden getting in shape becomes easier because you've done that early first step. And it's the same thing in business. Do an early process step a little bit, and it'll lead to great success. Hey, if you want to work with me and my team, go check us out on govconchamber.com. We focus mainly in the sales area, so business development and capture, getting people inside and having those meetings that lead to success. If that's something you're interested in learning more about, go over, check us out over there, and you can fill out our form. For all of us, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's a process. When you follow the process, you're going to have the success that you want. I'll see you in the next training.